We'll just get started. People will come in. First of all, thank you all very much for your time. I want to thank you in advance for your next hour. I appreciate your time. First session after lunch. I don't want you guys to get too tired, fatigued, start napping. I think we have a pretty interesting session today. Unfortunately, I apologize. The title is a little long-winded. I'll take responsibility for that. Probably could have made it a little more succinct.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to talk about a fascinating subject about deep dive. We're talking about smart buildings, energy smart buildings, and how we blend these solutions together. Give you the whole backstory, the whole journey, talk about the destination, and how we do it leveraging the power of the cloud. So, great session. So I'll start with a quick introduction. Myself and my co-presenter, Diego. My name's Darren Hubert. I have the privilege of being the CTO of Microsoft Services in APAC. So I live in Singapore. And this opportunity today is the centerpiece of today's discussion is around a project that we implemented in Singapore. But my remit, I get to work with enterprise customers, much like yourselves in the room, and architects. I'm an architect by training and by trade, on implementing these types of rich solutions that enable a lot of digital transformation scenarios. And this is a digital transformation story. Diego, quick intro.
Yes, my name is Diego Visa. I am a cloud solution architect actually based in New Zealand. Prior to joining the subsidiary here in New Zealand, I was based out of Singapore with Darren as an architect in services. And I was quite privileged to work on the project we're about to share with you today as the lead architect. So hopefully you find it very interesting. It was definitely an innovative project and one of tremendous transformation for the customer. So happy to be here to share this with you today.
Cool. All right. Just objectives and takeaways. I just want to talk about a little bit about what we want you to learn from this session, why we hope it's a valuable use of your hour and your time, and what we want you to take away from it. But we're going to talk about what is a really good story about digital transformation and how modern technologies can really help customers optimize in this case, their operations. But it's also their customers, and I'll get into the explanation of that, and the products and how they can really revolutionize and gain a lot of financial benefit, real speedy ROI on the use of digital technologies to enable the smart building experience. And that's along the way. What I want you guys to walk away from this is that this technology is real. It's here today. It may not be as ubiquitous and as common in all the buildings, but this technology and the solution that we'll be discussing is applicable for every building, I would argue, on the planet. Any building that has to manage a lot of square footage, has to manage lighting, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, perhaps elevator usage as well. And there's a lot of money that goes into being able to really hone in and optimize all of these things. That's where there's a lot of cost saving. That's kind of the journey we hope to take you on today. A little bit of the backstory, just to talk about this industry that I talked to you about. The opportunity is this. There is just about $1 trillion, or 1 trillion actual square feet of commercial real estate globally. So think about that, 1 trillion square feet of commercial real estate globally. With that comes, just very much like this room, very much like any other building, comes with energy consumption. So if you were to put a monetary figure to that, there's just shy of $3 trillion. It's a huge number of actual dollars spent on energy globally. But how efficient is that energy being utilized? Those who've done studies, those who are in real estate and facilities management have the expertise and have done the studies to determine that there is about between 15 and 30% of that is just pure waste. And you can see of that $1 trillion, that's just a huge number that can be and will be and should be optimized. And that's really what we want to start off with. Now I want to talk about Microsoft. Everyone knows Microsoft. Everyone's here for a reason. You know that we are a platform and productivity company. We've got great solutions like 365 and Azure and all of the rich services that go on with Azure and the platform. But another aspect to Microsoft that you might not know is how much square footage. We're actually in the real estate business. and the facilities management business. Globally, Microsoft as a company, we operate pretty much in every industrialized country, more often than not in multiple cities, and sometimes within a city there might be multiple offices. In Singapore, for example, there's multiple buildings, multiple offices that house Microsoft employees. If you go to Redmond, for example, it's a completely different story, which is the centerpiece of this conversation. But we have 622 sites globally. We operate in 110 countries, and we house 135,000 employees globally. It's an enormous thing. So any property management company, if you talk to CB Richard Ellis, CBRE, or Jones Lang LaSalle, these are two businesses that that are in this industry, they would be envious of these kinds of numbers, the types of square footage and employees and consumption that Microsoft manages. So that's a little bit about the problem. As far as the campus in general, I want to talk and focus in on our Puget Sound campus. We have an enormous amount of sites and structures there. If you just look at it from a facilities management lens, we have 145 buildings there, 115 million square feet of space. That's huge, actually. We have 500 acres of land, multiple systems. The thing that I want to talk here is the megawatt hours. That's about 3% of the grid in Puget Sound. So anything that we do to optimize that tangibly and literally moves the needle on energy consumption. And we spend, Microsoft as a company, $60 million just on the Puget Sound campus on energy. Now the thing with that much building, that much structures, we have 2 million connection points. And connection points being all of the things I had just mentioned about a building, and all those things are giving off telemetry that needs to be consumed and analyzed and made use of. So that's an awful lot. If I just look at the West Campus, and this is one of the points I want to talk about. Here's a building Microsoft recently built, the West Campus inside Redmond. If you've been to Microsoft and you've been to Redmond, you've likely walked these grounds. When all of these buildings were built, not necessarily all at one time, but separately. And when you build a building separately, or you build a building in general, you have to contract out and get multiple vendors. Who's going to be providing your heating? Who's going to be providing your parking? Who's going to be providing your lighting, your ventilation, all of these things? And the truth is, if you were to pick any number of vendors that that are in this industry providing the actual materials, and you say, Microsoft, which vendors do you work with? The answer is all. We just, by the nature of it, we work with every vendor largely on the planet that adds to the construction of a campus. The uniqueness of that is that we have disparate connection systems. So the way I bucketed these things, you could read the actual boxes, but everything from monitoring to communications, energy, building access, security, there's multiple vendors in each bucket, and none of them are really connected. None of them talk. So if you're in the business of having to manage all of these things, ideally from one dashboard, imagine that if you will, translating all of these things is a huge, huge, huge task. So it can honestly be accomplished by one of two things. You can either retrofit every building and every connection point with a standardized product, which is hugely expensive if you were to stop and think about it, or you could say, I'll deal with that, the infrastructure and the investment that was made there. How can I consume this data and actually begin the process and the job of managing it efficiently? So we chose to do it with software. And this is something that Microsoft did on its own. This is not a this is something that we have a facilities and real estate team, and that team knew that they had a big problem and a big remit to address. So they chose to do it with software. And the idea is to get all of these things on ideally common platforms so you can centrally manage these things and actually do so in a way where you understand where the problems are, how much energy is being consumed, what is breaking, what is apt to break, and be able to manage it. So if you think of it very much like an IoT-like scenario, or is an IoT scenario, where your devices are all over the place, different protocols, different types of devices, very much the same thing. But we're doing it to increase building efficiency. That's our goal, that's our target. To do so with systems that coordinate all of these systems. Again, it's really actually quite complex with the goals of reducing cost and getting quick ROI. So that's really the problem. So there begins the story of energy smart buildings, energy smart buildings. The situation, again, for us to repeat myself, disparate applications, different systems around a whole campus. And we had 500 acres and 15 million square feet to contend with. No ability to aggregate or overlay. That was the problem we had. And to do so, it was just really labor intensive to report. People would walk around with clipboards to understand how a particular unit was being serviced, when it needed its next service. If you've gone into any elevator and you've seen a sign sheet that says next service, talk to the building manager. It's kind of like those things. People have to walk around, take notes, and then that's really where things lie. So it's very paper-based as far as its record keeping goes. So obviously it's something that can and needs to be digitally transformed. But for the pilot, what we did is we tested multiple vendor solutions. We didn't know who was best of breed, who had a viable solution, who could scale, who could handle the volume here, and who didn't. So what we did is we created a project where we chose to do 13 buildings, which is a really fair representative sample, which is 2.6 million square feet, and start with that as our pilot. Uniquely, we had to compare what were the service offerings. Were there software offerings, software as a service offerings, or do we go on-premise, something that we have to consider? Answer is we went with a hybrid approach, but that was just the logistics and the decisions that was made for this particular project. But the idea of launching the smart energy concept was reducing consumption, optimizing the assets, and really getting huge ROI out of that. So this spawned off this project called 88 Acres. This is an actual public case in case anyone hasn't seen it, but we're going to delve into a lot of this technology and the application of it. The whole goal and whole intent is to learn the system for ourselves, be able to manage our square footage, and if the opportunity presents itself where we can bring others along for this journey, then that's fantastic. Again, with the remit and the goal of creating a smart campus, and objectively the smartest campus in the world. So there you go. So before I get into that, I just want to show some of the immediate benefits. This is just a slide, a representative graphic of one of the buildings of what life was like up until that time and what the percentage of cost savings that went into it once we started getting building up the knowledge, understanding what were the metrics, the KPIs that we needed to address, and how we learned from that. And this is just some of the cost savings that we were able to achieve. Okay? With that said, I'm not that good a storyteller. I do want to take a moment and showcase a video. It should go up in a second. It did in practice. We rehearsed this. So let's see it go. Uh-oh. Boo. Sorry, team. Anything? Well, you know what? Boo. I apologize. Is it?
It's crashed.
It's crashed?
Yeah.
All right, so this is when I was going to do hand puppetry and entertain everybody.
Let's try again.
Bear with us, guys. Thanks. It's funny how that happens. You go through everything, you test everything, everything works, and then you come down to showtime. And the crazy thing is this is being streamed live, so let's see if this works.
Yay,
there you go.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
This is a really great video, by the way, so I'm glad.
Thanks for your patience.
Glad it worked.
So I've been doing facility management for over 17 years now, and I've worked at some of the largest companies around the world. At Microsoft, we have a portfolio of buildings that we manage. We're 15 million square feet, 59,000 housed heads in 125 buildings. So we can't look at our campus as one building at a time. We have to really have a portfolio approach, the ability to drive standard temperatures, to monitor the buildings, to maintain them. And when buildings are so disparate in their systems and applications, it provides a real problem for us. And we were looking for a way to leverage the data that's flowing out of all the existing systems to really optimize the buildings. And our vision is, with an energy smart building, that you're really using all the data across all the building systems in real time to tell us exactly how the building's performing, and if it starts to have a repair issue, we can respond immediately. So the process for us is we built our requirements, we ran a multi-vendor pilot, and we deployed the solution across our entire portfolio. And the solution is built on Microsoft technology from vendors that have their products commonly off the shelf. The results have been substantial. We're seeing a decrease in our energy, we're seeing improved labor efficiencies, we're seeing the performance of our buildings improve, not only in brand new buildings, but in buildings that have been in our portfolio for 40 years or more. We uncovered elements that were just unbeknownst to us. We found energy savings in the tens of thousands of dollars that were going on for multiple months, if not longer. When we used to have a power bump or a windstorm, it was more effective for us to roll trucks. Everybody grab a building across our real estate portfolio and check all the systems. Now I can do that same activity in less than 2 minutes in my living room. Who would have thought that I could aggregate all these disparate systems on one screen? We're really making the invisible visible. For our building performance report, it'd take us over 6 hours to aggregate data from across multiple systems, and then we could do our engineering. Now that same process takes 2 minutes to push a button, run the report, then we get to start our engineering, and that is a huge game change for us. The investment that we made in this was recovered in 2 years, and the benefits have far exceeded what we expected. The anchor of our investment was to reduce our energy consumption, optimize the building assets, and improve labor efficiencies. And using software to really do this has been phenomenal.
How great was that video? Was that inspiring? Yeah. So, let's make sure we don't have another fail.
Yeah.
So what I want to do now is talk about our customer JTC. Now, quick show of hands. Firstly, anyone in facilities management here? Fantastic, because my lingo's a bit off. Secondly, do we have architects in the room? Fantastic. So my section of the slides will be fairly technical, and it's a really good, detailed journey, let's just say, of how we went about methodically deploying this solution, how we interacted with the customers, how we built the solution, et cetera, et cetera. So first things first, this particular solution, this smart building solution, is the first smart building solution Microsoft has deployed globally. Is that right?
Outside of the 88 acres.
Outside of the 88 acres. So it was a very inspiring project for us. It was a project that really, that we learnt a lot from. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it was a project that actually transformed how the customer does business. So this was a Microsoft-led engagement end-to-end. And I know a lot of people in the audience think of Microsoft as people that sell Office, people that sell Windows servers, but we're much more than that. How many people in the audience know about Microsoft services? Fair few. So we've got rockstar architects, rockstar consultants all around the globe. And I was the rockstar on this one. But the point being is that we delivered this solution end-to-end, of course, with some help from some partners. But it was a highly unique project, something that we hadn't really done before because of the complexities involved, because of the domain expertise required. And because of that, we worked with some of our partners to deliver this. So the project had quite a few unique streams. First of all, we had facilities management consultancy expertise required. We also had to work with an ISV to deploy the domain-specific solution. We also then had to provide configuration around the fault rules to detect when systems are not working within buildings, and we'll cover what a fault rule is a bit later on. And we had a change management stream, because at the end of the day, when you deploy a tool, it's ineffective unless the customer adopts it and uses it, right? And that's usually when most projects fail, lack of change management. So in this case, we partnered with a few vendors and solution providers and consultancy firms. Firstly, we partnered with Iconics, and they're delivering the ISV-specific solution for us that sits on top of Azure. Then working with Intelligent Buildings, who provided the facilities management consultancy stream along with our RE&F team, Daryl Smith. And then DB Engineering did some of the fault rule configuration for us. And again, we'll go into details on how that all came together. So buildings are a great candidate for IoT, and why is that? Buildings generate a vast amount of data. You might have maybe 1,000 data points in any given building. If you look at Sky City, I can't even begin to imagine how many data points are in here, but they generate a tremendous amount of information, things such as temperature readings, energy usage, lighting, elevator states, even tell you how much coffee's left in the machine. This is all important information, but the challenge with a building is, as Darren mentioned, all of these systems are usually proprietary. So how do you get an aggregated view of what's happening with your building so you can make an informed management decision on what to do next? And that's the problem we're trying to solve with our solution. So if we look at smart buildings and frame them up into capability tiers, we usually start down the bottom, and the first level or the first base capability of a smart building is automation. Now, granted, we could argue whether that makes a building smart or not, but that's usually where a lot of people start. As we go up, we move into predictive maintenance, which is the ability for us to foresee when equipment will fail. And we go all the way up into ambient intelligence. And as we go up the stack, we improve the value of the smart building. So we start at the bottom. We have productive and sustainable buildings. As we move up that stack to ambient intelligence, we then later on make productive users and improve the tenant experience as well. And we've got a great demonstration of what ambient intelligence looks like a little later on, hopefully if we get some time. So what are some of the key outputs we see when we deploy a smart building solution, and what do our customers expect to see? So I won't go through this verbose, but you can see some of the things we've highlighted up here. Things such as reducing energy consumption by fine-tuning equipment. As Daryl mentioned in the video, one of the things that occurs very often is the inability to see how your equipment is performing, and we're able to bubble that up through this tool. Daryl brought up an example previously on how at midnight they would get a certain spike in electricity, and it was because of a misconfiguration of a particular mechanical piece of equipment that would have otherwise gone unnoticed. So that's an example of how we reduce energy consumption. Things such as optimizing building assets by using predictive maintenance in order to tailor those maintenance schedules. Centralizing operations, so a key value of the solution is being able to manage all of your buildings as a single portfolio. So you can imagine that many organizations who have multiple campuses, they would have specific engineers located at each of those campuses monitoring those buildings, and that's one thing we can improve here. We can centralize all of that because we've got a tool that manages all of those buildings as a single portfolio. So all of this ties together to obviously improve energy efficiency, improve sustainability, and again, improve the the occupancy experience, sorry. So let me talk a little about JTC. Has anyone heard of JTC at all? One person, fantastic. So JTC are the leaders in design and planning of industrial landscape in Singapore. As you can see there from the slide, they have 7,400 hectares of land, 4 million square meters of facilities. And if you visit Singapore and you head off to a business park, it's more than likely owned by JTC. So they're a big shop. As I mentioned, they do design planning, they help out with construction, and the other thing that's in their charter is facilities management, which is why this solution is very important. And what we did for JTC as part of the proof of concept, we took on board 3 buildings, and we delivered some of those base capabilities around automation, fault detection and diagnostics, and more importantly, being able to bubble up all of those buildings in a single dashboard. so they could easily see how their buildings were performing and make management decisions. So this is JTC's vision, and if you're reading between the lines, it's all around disrupting business. They talk about delivering top-class industrial infrastructure, but this is really their digital transformation. It's all about how do they provide something different to what's out there in the market. And part of this vision wasn't possible without the assistance of Microsoft. So JTC turned to Microsoft to help them deliver this vision, and this is where we got engaged. And I'm going to talk a bit about the story and how this occurred. So you can see here, this is JTC's journey towards smart buildings. It started off in 2013, and the other thing to point out is these things don't happen overnight. Things take time, and there's a process. And there's a partnership as well. They trusted Microsoft, and we built that relationship. So in 2013, JTC came over to Redmond. They visited our executive briefing center, and they visited our Redmond operations center and spent time with Daryl Smith to understand how does he run his business from a day-to-day perspective, how do the engineers do their job, et cetera, et cetera. What are the best practices Daryl has learnt in his journey? In 2015, when I was in Singapore, we ran through some initial 2014, we ran through some initial envisioning sessions, trying to understand what's possible for JTC. Through the output of that, we then commenced an official engagement with JTC where we ran a one-week workshop with them. And that one-week workshop was really designed to understand, again, how JTC operates, what they do day to day, what are their pain points, and how can we help them overcome those pain points. It was I distinctly remember, it was a one-week intense workshop. We had many stakeholders in there, and that's the other important thing. You've got to ensure the right stakeholders are in the room. This is not an IT-based solution. This is a business solution. So we had the CEO, CIO, as well as the IT team in those workshops. And we had some really good conversation and some really good ideas of what's possible. In 2015, we started on the proof of concept. This stage, I moved over to New Zealand, but obviously still working on this. And this is where we rolled out the 3 buildings. 2016, we finished. Yep. And now we're moving to the next phase, which is rolling out, I think, an additional 30 buildings or so.
Largely just due to the success of the program.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's JTC's story so far. Now, let's look at the architecture of how we put this together. So this is a typical IoT solution. What I've got in front here is Microsoft's IoT blueprint, so to speak, and you can see there's multiple phases going from left and right. And we've got the event producer, right? This is the device that generates the telemetry. We have the collection stage, which is where we ingest that data. We have the ingestion broker, the transformation layer, and the long-term storage. And this is all where we take that data, transform it, and make it meaningful. And then the last phase there is really around presenting that data back up and making informed decisions and actually actioning based on that data. If we overlay the solution that we did with JTC, including the ISV's software components, you can see it matches the blueprint exactly. So in this case, the event producer is the building itself. We then have a gateway that sits on premises, that collects the data from the building, pumps it into the cloud securely. We then have some services that run in the cloud that normalize that data, ingest that data, put it in a database, and then we have the ability to present that data not only on a workstation, but on mobile devices such as tablets and phones. So we spoke a bit about what 88 Acres is doing, and I think, based off what we've done with JTC, you can see that 88 Acres is really the bar for JTC in terms of what we're doing around innovation. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that we're doing and leveraging the Azure platform for, in particular machine learning and big data, et cetera, et cetera. So the first one there, the first pillar is all around predicting energy consumption. So wouldn't it be good, especially if you work in facilities management, you're usually buying energy on bulk, right? So wouldn't it be good to work out what will be my energy usage in 6 months so I can make that investment? The other things we're doing are all around using machine learning to work out predictive maintenance schedules. And also, we mentioned those fault rules, using machine learning to learn breakdown patterns and introduce new fault rules automatically. So we're doing some very innovative stuff, and we've actually got a model working that's able to take the temperature from outside, the temperature from the environment, and use that to determine what your energy consumption will be for the given day or the given next days if you look forward. So we're going to get deep into the actual journey with the customer now, and if we've got some time, we're actually going to show you a bit of a demo, show you the dashboard that the customer uses and interacts with. So hopefully that all comes together because we put the demo together last night. So the first thing is, this is a very important message. Any good consultant should be walking a day in the customer's shoes. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, you actually need to spend time with the customer, understand what they do on a day-to-day basis, understand their pain points. And I had the privilege of literally walking with these guys for a week. So I actually did some site inspections, went into the basements, got my hands dirty, try to understand the facilities management taxonomy. So things such as HVAC systems, AHUs, VAVs, all that kind of stuff. And we also went into their operations center to see how they run their buildings, to understand, again, what are their pain points and how can we help them through the solution. Next, we went through, after the tour, and we began project initiation. So we started...
Learnings to share are pertaining to those that we have learned.
That's... Don't know what that was.
Whoops.
That wasn't me. So then we went through project initiation. And we needed to sort of agree on certain things, right? Because the way we define things is not the way the customer defines things, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing is we needed to agree on what is a secure way to connect their data to the cloud. One of the things about JTC is they're very security sensitive, right? So it wasn't just a matter of opening up firewalls and sending data into the cloud. We had to come up with a way to send that data securely over the internet. The other thing is they didn't want any direct connection into Azure, for example, for this solution. So we worked with our partners to do that. Definitions is very important. How you define a fault, how I define a fault, very different. You know, a fault for me could be, I don't know, an air conditioning unit that's broken, but for a customer it may be that the air conditioning unit isn't performing as it should and cooling down the room. So very important as well to agree on the taxonomy and the language. So we went through that with the customer to understand what do faults mean, for example. And then obviously prioritizing faults. So for example, a broken light bulb, probably not as important as fixing an air conditioning, especially in Singapore that's not cooling properly. The other thing that you can see here that I don't really cover is the different devices that, that the customer can use to view the dashboard. So over here, I'd like to say that's a Surface Hub, but it's not. It's just a projector with a whiteboard on it. And then as you go to the left, we've got a Windows phone, okay? And then we've got iOS and Android down the bottom. And obviously, they can consume this data over a PC. So multiple form factors. And why this is important is if you have engineers on the road that can't open up a PC, it's a lot easier for them to open up their mobile device and have a look at how the building's performing or actually respond to an incident. Now, that one's quiet. The next thing, the building prerequisites, so connectivity. The next thing around connectivity is how do we get the devices so all of the telemetry is ingested into a single point, and how do we get those devices talking in a language that we understand? What we needed to do is we needed to look at whether we need to retrofit gear or we needed to simply do a protocol conversion. And I'll give you a quick lesson into the building blocks of a smart building. So we usually have three tiers. We have the field tier. That is the tier that contains all the mechanical equipment, and it's the tier that's generating that telemetry data. So that could be a HVAC unit, it could be lighting, it could be an elevator, anything that generates telemetry. The next thing we have is the middle tier, which we call the automation tier. Now that tier contains the field gateways and automation gateways, and their job is to take the analog and digital signals from the field tier and convert it into an industry standard protocol that we can work with. In the case of building management, that protocol is referred to as BACnet. There's a couple of other ones, but BACnet is the most standard protocol. And then from there, we take that information and move it to the top tier, which is the management tier, which effectively aggregates all that information, presents it in a dashboard. And the other thing we can do from the management tier is command and control, which gives us the ability to actually send a command back to the equipment. So if we need to change temperature, we can trigger that through the equipment. The other piece here, which not many people think about, is coming up with naming standards for all your data points. So what we found with our customer is that they named the equipment the same thing across all of the buildings. So you can see the problem there. When you aggregate all the buildings, you're going to have a naming conflict. So we had to spend some time sanitizing that list, cleaning it up, normalizing it, and that was a very important thing for us to do as well. Now, Darren left that slide in there, but I kind of talked about it. So again, this is the 3 tiers that I mentioned to you before. We have the devices generating the telemetry. Take a photo, make Darren happy. And then in the middle tier, we've got all the aggregation of that information, and then we move up to the top tier, which is the management solution. So I quickly spoke about fault management. Important thing is obviously to prioritize the faults, and why that's important is our customer JTC wanted to understand how much was any given fault costing them per hour. And you'll see that in the demo. So there's this attribute, or there's this KPI measurement that if you leave something unfixed for a certain amount of time, it costs your business a certain amount of money. So being able to bubble up the cost of each fault, very important for JTC. So I mentioned at the beginning of the section fault rules and what fault rules are. In buildings, you obviously have the standard fault, which is an air conditioning unit might be broken or it's working, kind of a 1 and 0, but that doesn't necessarily define a fault for a lot of customers. For example, the air conditioning may be working, right, and it might be running at 100%, and the room may already be cool. So obviously there's something that might not be quite right there. There might be something that's not working within specification. So being able to pull up multiple data points, not just the data points on the equipment, and then analyzing those and running them through a fault rule to determine whether there's a potential fault, this is what a fault rule delivers. And any given building may have 300-400 fault rules running at any given time. For the architects in the room, we've got a diagram. So, you guys get all this? Don't have to run through it because it's quite complex. You can see at the top we're using multiple Azure services. The first thing we're doing is the buildings themselves. They all have gateway devices that provide aggregation of the building management system data. Those gateway devices then encrypt and encode that information and pump it up into the cloud via an SSL connection. So this all traverses the internet securely. We then have a web app that presents the dashboard to the customer, as well as cloud services that broker a lot of that incoming telemetry data. The next layer there are the VMs that we have, and some of those VMs provide the aggregation, the transformation of the data, and then the storage of that data. And then we also have sort of that Power BI section where we're able to visualize all that data coming out from the Azure platform. So we're going to do a demo very shortly. How are we going with time? So let me just get this ready. So before we get into the demo, quickly want to talk about the dashboards we created for the customer. So there's 2 distinct dashboards. There's one for the executives and the senior leadership team. And the senior leadership team like to see how their buildings are performing against a KPI, and it kind of makes sense, right? They don't know the low-level details. They don't want to understand how the mechanical equipment is performing. But if they can get an all-up aggregated view via a KPI, it gives them a good indication of how they're tracking. And you can see in this diagram, it's very high level. I can see a map, I can see my buildings, and I can see how my buildings are performing from a portfolio perspective. This one is for the operators and engineers. It gives them a more detailed view of how the buildings are performing. And the thing that they get is the ability to drill down and look at individual components within that building. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a demo. Now, again, I need to re-emphasize, we built this last night. For obvious reasons, we can't show you the customer's environment, but hopefully it gives you a good indication of what the platform looks like. Okay. So this is the smart building solution running on top of Azure that we built in partnership with Iconics. And you can see at a glance, we get quite a bit of information from the first screen. The first thing that we get is we can see how many active alerts we have in any given building, which is fantastic. It allows me to drill in. And again, this is the operator's view of the dashboard. I can go across the ribbon, and I'm cognizant that some of the information might be a bit small, so just put your hand up if you can't see stuff. So if I look at if I look across the top of the ribbon, I've got different views that I can select. The first view, and this will take a bit of time, gives me a good indication of how the buildings are performing and how the systems within the building are performing. So you can see here I'm monitoring 5 buildings, and off the get-go I can see I've got a red against Tower 3. I can see that I'm underperforming against my KPI. I've got 58 faults within that building. The rest of the stuff looks pretty good. I've got a couple of yellows around energy, so I'm not tracking well against my KPI. Wi-Fi is good, which is important. And then comfort level looks pretty good, with the exception of a couple of buildings. The next thing I can do is I can actually drill down and see what these faults are and how much these faults are costing me. So you can see this table list form of all of the equipment within all of the buildings. And I can go over to fault incidents over here, and I can see this rooftop unit is costing me over $4,000 per whatever it is without fixing it, right? So it's a cost of it's a cost to me the longer that I leave it unfixed. And if I actually drill into that particular piece of mechanical equipment, the tool actually provides me a high-level description of what the problem is, and I'll zoom that in. And it clearly says there that the unit's not actually operating within specification. It gives me the probable causes of what the problem may be. And in this case, it's saying maybe the valve is stuck, or the air distribution space is blocked. Or the other thing could be that it's not sized correctly for the room that it's facilitating. And then it provides possible solutions for repair. Now, the cool thing is here, I could then go ahead and log a work order against this right from within the tool, and this would link up with Darren's favorite product, CRM. Yeah. So away we go, right? That's really easy for the operators to do, and they can have a ticket in the system and away they go. Now, if I head back to my home screen, I will show you another view. So again, I can see very high level how my buildings are performing. I can see down the bottom here I've got a building with 14 active faults. I can literally drill down by clicking into each of these buildings. And if I click on Tower 3 where we saw those 54 faults, I get a specific view around Tower 3. In this case here in red, I can see how many faults I have ongoing at any given time. In the middle there, if you can see that, I've got a list of all the mechanical equipment within that building, and I can quickly see that my air handling unit has about 12 faults, and I can see my VAV, which is my variable air volume system, has 15 faults, and this is where it starts getting really cool and it becomes a great tool for the engineers. I click on VAV, and on the right-hand side I can see all of the levels that VAV is servicing, and I can see there's a fault on level 1. I can then click on level 1, and look at that, I actually get a floor plan. And through that floor plan, I can see all of the equipment that I'm monitoring. In this case, if I head over here, I can see this is my VAV1, and I can drill into VAV1 and then, if required, change some parameters or have a look at why it's not performing as it should. So there you go. Now I've got one more node that I'll show you, and then, yeah, we'll move on. The other view is if I've got retail stores, I've got a less complex view of how those retail stores are performing. And you can see here in this example, City Creek, again, I've got a floor plan. I can dive in and turn on different layers. In this case, I'll turn on the HVAC layer, and I can see the server room cooking, right? They need to move stuff to Azure for sure. So if I head over to the HVAC system and I dive into this, and I go into the server room, one more node. Gives me a good view of how the units and the systems within that server room are performing. I can see I've got a warning around the dehumidifier. I can see that I've got a lot of alarms. So obviously this server room needs quite a bit of attention. I can then head to the VAV that's servicing that server room and come in here and can modify some of the information around where I want the cooling set point to be, for example, and modify that out. So that's a pretty good demo. Did you enjoy that? Was that a good representation of the solution? Fantastic. So that's the demo covered. Did you?
Right, now this will go into the closing section here. I think the thing that we wanted to point out is a lot of the solutions, a lot of these things really feed into the theme of digital transformation. Microsoft's point of view into digital transformation is just to use and leverage modern technologies to rethink and better organize how businesses either engage customers, how they improve operations, how they improve their product portfolio, and how they improve the employee experience. And Microsoft's position in digital transformation is to, from a software perspective, provide the cloud services that create the capability so others can leverage them, others can build those end solutions to help businesses and enterprises go through that transformation process. But we also want to be able to do it either obviously for ourselves and help through our services teams to help go out and help customers leverage these platforms and leverage these technologies, hence that point. Looking for the roadmap of smart buildings. Again, Diego mentioned at the beginning that at the root, like sort of phase one is always going to be smart energy optimization and optimizing the performance of a building. And it goes through a series of evolution until you point where you get to ambient intelligence and that type of experience. And this is really where we're going today. And this is really where the technologies that enable that type of ambient intelligence are actually live today. And we're going to show you what that is and how those can be applied. So really quick, I'll give you a walkthrough, and then we'll have a little bit of a video that goes and talks about the ambient experience. Just like with any digital transformation, the best way to go about thinking through is through design thinking, inclusive design, where you bring people into a room because you ultimately want to change how you do business, how you engage your customers. You either want to grow new revenue streams or you want to be able to optimize costs, very much like what JTC chose to do. But going through and bringing a group of thinkers and say, how do we want to reimagine the experience of employees' engagement? And in this particular example, this is the product of a sketch scenario where people came in and chose to ideate and come up with a solution. So we have here John. He works at Fusionopolis. Fusionopolis, it's a tough one to say. He prefers to work on a specific floor. When I go into my office, I tend to, out of habit, I tend to go onto the 20th floor in my building and work in sort of the southeast end of it. But I also sometimes need to go to the 23rd floor and work on the northwest side of it. So sometimes depending on my meetings and it's on my calendar, I may have to go into the 22nd floor. But having that intelligence to be able to help guide me in the process is something that's actually today's technology. So we have a person who is going to meet John. We've met John. And in this particular scenario, the building, if you will, is communicating and is having a one-to-one relationship with John and informs him, hey, this is an actual good time to leave for the office. This is actually a case study that Microsoft has worked on, and this is a real solution. And because the building knows where John lives, knows what the traffic patterns are from his home to the office, can say, if you leave right now, you'll avoid traffic. Or if you experience traffic, what are the best ways to get around that? It can help that way because all those technologies are available today. Parking notification. One of the problems if you commute, I assume, for those who drive a car to work, is parking. In some urban cases, parking is a rare commodity. You either are an early bird and you get to work on time and get the right choice parking spot, or maybe you're stuck and you have to park one or two parking buildings away. But if you have that connected, having a smart building can actually guide you and say, parking structure 1 is full. I've got a parking space reserved for you in slot 2, and I'll guide you down that direction. Again, this is all real technology, but it came from the ideation aspect. So a person shows up, John is routed to his preferred parking spot, again, guiding him the way. You could see he says here, go to level 3, space 5, and this is all modern IoT scenarios. Okay? So then next thing, John gets to go to work. He gets to improve the machine learning experience. Like with any good machine learning algorithm, it needs care and feeding. It needs oxygen in order to determine the strength of that model. In this case, as an example, was I helpful for you? And you could give it yes or no. And if it takes that self-learning, and it can improve the next time and the next time and the next time. So that's really how these things kind of come full circle. Okay? Same thing as can help with a suggested space on where he goes to work. I mentioned previously that I go to the 20th floor, I go to the West Wing, and it could say here level 4 West Wing. The whole idea of based on the people with whom you work, we know based on your office graph that I tend to work with Diego frequently. We have meetings scheduled in the same time frame with each other. Therefore, we very much likely are working on similar projects. He came into the office early. He happens to be on the 4th floor. Would you like to make sure that we reserve a spot for you? Those are types of scenarios, especially Microsoft, for us, when we go to work, we have a free flow campus. When you go into a Microsoft office, it is first come, first serve, and it's really, you can go wherever you want. And there's no rules. There are no designated offices. So having this type of guide saying your team is working in this unit or this this wing of the building, it can be quite helpful. Okay, and here's the opportunity where it says as part of the journey, I found you a spot. Is it good? I'm giving the care and feedback to help that machine learning. Then it will check you into your spot. Again, this is all through that design thinking. This is a great way to work. And that's the point. Now let's say the next scenario is you have a meeting and you're going to have a customer come visit you. And because of technology that's out there, we're able to read that person's license plate. And with that reading, we can then make a notification that informs you that your visitor has arrived. Do you want to help guide that person to the appropriate meeting space? So again, getting that notification is a really interesting way of working. And then you could welcome that visitor. You could send an alert to the receptionist who already knows that person's arrived, knows that he's here to meet with yourselves on level 5, conference room A, that type of thing. And these are all scenarios that are going to be in our work future sooner probably than you would know. They're right around the corner. Modern workspaces and modern companies are employing this type of experience and this type of technology to improve the productivity of their own people. Okay? In this example, the room finder, I assume with many of you, one of my biggest problems is coming across a meeting room space. It's always taken up by somebody who are kind of like stealing it, and even if it's one person on a phone call of a meeting room for 12 people, that happens way too often. But here, if you use an app that can help you find what's available now and be able to book it with sort of one click as opposed to having to go through all sorts of means to have other people book that meeting space for you. It's a huge improvement in productivity. And then allows you to check into that. So now all of a sudden that's an appropriate meeting space for you. If it knows that it's myself, Diego, and our customer, it's not going to book me a room for 12 people. It'll find one that's available for 4 and knows that it's right fit for purpose. Okay? And that said, we're going to come to a video that really sort of highlights and shows this, because I'm certainly not eloquent enough to go into all of the depths of creating an ambient intelligent experience. But I wanted to bring this home for you and show how these things are coming into play and give you a little window into the near future.
We craft surroundings to fit our needs, striving to make better spaces to live, work, and play. At the end of this long line of innovation lies something new and amazing, buildings that are connected and intelligent. Building this future requires huge leaps forward. Changes not only in how we design buildings, but how we make them people-centric. Imagine a building that feels. An office made for you that reacts to your presence. You choose a desk that works for you, and the building adjusts to fit your needs. The perfect space comes to life around you. The building knows you, the people near you, and where you need to go. It helps keep you all on track, on the same page, adapting to help you do great things. Finding the people, the space, the path, the perfect moment. Anticipating every step of the way. And when the day's done, the building isn't. It helps you on your way and makes the world a little better at the same time. Because all this productivity, comfort, and innovation means nothing if we don't think about its impact. Microsoft is committed to this idea and has made the future of smart buildings a reality today, using technology to make your work and life easier.
Give me the next slide. Oops. There you go. I just wanted to close off by saying this is, again, thank you much for your hour. I wanted to share with you a story, and the story was about digital transformation. And for us, digital transformation is the best use case of technology to solve problems, to solve business problems, and do so in a responsible and ethical way. We feel that this smart buildings is certainly one where we chose at Microsoft to see how we can optimize, in this case, how we manage 34 million square feet of real estate and do so in a way that really leverages the best of technologies that Microsoft has to offer. A lot of these things wouldn't be possible without the power of cloud computing. So a lot of the services in Azure and all of the platform application services that are available really make these things sing. And it really creates not just the building optimization experiences, but the ambient experience as well that the last video just showcased. As far as a recap of objectives and key takeaways that I want to say is I want to introduce to you, even if you're not in the facilities management business or maybe are looking to do this with your own company, I just want to give you an insight as to what our point of view is on digital transformation, and we feel it's best showcased through live examples and real tangible examples from customers who've made that choice, who've made that leap to go forward and embark on this journey. And it is a journey, it's not a destination. The customer going live and using our services isn't the end goal. The end goal is to keep going, to keep transforming, to keep leveraging the new features, the new capabilities, come up with new ideation and use cases and seeing how that can improve either if you're in buildings, maybe help the tenants. How do the tenants get to work? What's your relationship with them? How can you help them be more productive? And those are just that's sort of the stack of capabilities. And the one thing I want to say is that this is all happening. If you walk around, I was talking to Diego, as you walk around Auckland, you walk around Sky City, you can just see the enormity of buildings and real estate that has to go through this management. I would argue that we're certainly around here, there's 15 to 30% of waste, and it's a huge cost to those who have to pay the bills. being able to use these technologies which are here today, use these solutions, and create these new scenarios that help reduce costs, help be more efficient, and help do so in a sustainable manner, is really where we're going as a company and I believe as a society. So again, a little window into the future, and I don't think it's going to be too far distant. So on behalf of Diego and myself, would very much like to thank you all for your time.
Thanks, everybody. Yep.
And I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you.
Thank you.